Noah's flood. Something that apparently 40% of Americans believe happened. The problem is, of course, the lack of hard evidence to support it. Matt Powell, though, has apparently 10 reasons why Noah's flood is a fact. Here we go. Hello all and welcome along to day 11 of One a Day for May, where I post a video every single day for the month of May to celebrate hitting 300 million total channel views. My name is Simon Dan, Zeus has now gone, thank you very much for joining me. Before we begin today's video though, I was reading earlier how a Soviet era spacecraft is set to plunge to Earth, a half a century after its failed launch to Venus. And I was reading that story on Ground News, which was actually founded by a former NASA engineer called Harleen Kaur, who actually worked on the James Webb Space Telescope. Now, Ground News combines stories and articles from thousands of outlets, local and national, in one place so readers can see the full picture of what's being reported around the world. As you can see here, Ground News shows you if there's any political leanings for each publication. And in this instance, with the Soviet spacecraft story, we can see that it's mainly centre-driven, with 313 total news sources. Now, for every story, you get a quick visual breakdown of the news outlet covering it, their political bias, how factual the source is, which entity owns that source, and which countries are covering the story. You can also click on any of the headlines to read the story from its original source. The best thing is that you can develop a well-rounded world view. See every side to every story with access to international perspectives that are hard to find. So then you can make informed decisions where you can read, watch and share the best information available. And Ground News is also mission-centric. It's not about eliminating bias, but providing better transparency. And they're funded by their community, not by big ads or investors. So go to ground.news/Simon, stay fully informed on breaking news and compare media coverage. Sign up with my link in the description for 40% off unlimited access if you support the mission and find it as useful as I do. Right, on with today's video then, and the creationist YouTuber Matt Powell. He is not happy that people think Noah's flood is a myth. So today he's presenting 10 reasons that he thinks it's not. Let's have a look at his list, shall we?
A lot of people are under the impression that Noah's flood never happened. And if you tell people that you believe in biblical creationism, sometimes they will laugh at you. But let me tell you, biblical creationism and Noah's flood are two verifiable things that you can show to be accurate.
Well, you can't, Matt, because you've tried several times and not done so. But please carry on.
In this video, I'm going to give you 10 reasons why Noah's flood is a fact.
Here we go, people, buckle up.
Number one is because you find sea life on every single mountain. There are entire whales that we find perfectly preserved on top of mountains. We also find gigantic oysters, some as big as cars on the Andes Mountains. How did they get there? And not to mention, these oysters are often sealed shut, and they were not even able to open when they died, as oysters and clams normally do.
Well, the Earth's crust is constantly shifting over millions of years. Ancient seabeds can be pushed up as tectonic plates collide, forming, of course, mountains, which is a very credible reason as to how you find marine life up there. And no perfectly preserved whale has ever been found on top of a mountain. What are you talking about? With the oysters, though, things like clams and oysters can be found either open or shut, depending, of course, how quickly they were buried and fossilized. All you've done here, Matt, is show how you don't know how fossilization or geology works.
Evidence number two would be polystrata fossils. Think about it. We find trees that are upside down in some cases that are penetrating multiple layers of the geologic column. Now, if these layers slowly accumulated over millions of years, why is it that you have a tree that connects many of these layers? That means that the layers are an identical age, because trees aren't just going to stand there for millions of years waiting to be fossilized as sediment layers are slowly forming around them. It tells us that these trees were placed there by a cataclysmic process and not by slow and gradual change in the Earth's crust.
So yes, these polystrate fossils are a thing, and are typically upright fossilized trees, as Matt says, that extend vertically through multiple layers of sedimentary rock. They're most commonly found in coal beds, floodplains, and volcanic deposits. The thing is, sedimentary layers don't always take millions of years to form. And think about this, trees can remain upright for years or decades, while sediment builds up around them. In fact, what you've shown here completely debunks the idea of a global flood. A global flood would not create neatly layered strata or upright trees standing in place. It would create chaotic, mixed layers, not organised geological columns.
My third piece of evidence would be coal seams. Some of them are actually over 100 feet thick. Now, coal is made up of vegetation and swamp material and plants and trees that get smashed together between sediments. That's how coal is formed. And so in order to get a seam that's over 100 feet thick, you would have to have a globally cataclysmic event to be able to create such coal seams.
Thick seams don't mean lots of plants all at once. They mean long-term plant accumulation and burial. Thick coal seams form gradually in swampy environments over millions of years, not in a single event. And again, a flood would dump sediment, not neatly preserved peat. You'd expect mixed layers, animal remains and destructive plants, not orderly pure coal beds. Dear oh dear.
The fourth piece of evidence would be rock arches. Think about it. Rocks are actually breaking down. This mountain that's behind me is being broken down by gravity over time. Gravity is causing everything to erode flat. Could rock arches have been standing for millions and millions of years without crumbling down from gravity? The answer is no. These rock arches were formed in the recent past by Noah's flood, by a globally cataclysmic event. And that's why they're still standing today, is because they were placed there in the recent past. They were formed in the recent history of the planet and not millions and millions of years ago.
Rock arches are perfectly explained by long-term natural erosion, and their existence actually supports an old Earth, not a young one. These rock arches form through a slow, multi-step process. First, you've got the deposition of horizontal rock layers, normally sandstone. Then there's uplift through tectonic activity, fracturing the rock, and then of course weathering and erosion over millions of years. Water can seep into some cracks and then expand when frozen. Wind-blown sand granules grate away softer rock. And of course gravity does cause collapse, but over a much larger timescale. And by the way, turbulent floodwaters erode rapidly and without discrimination. They don't leave behind finely balanced structures.
My fifth piece of evidence would be hoodoos. Hoodoos are rock spires that often have very little debris at the bottom of them. Now, is it possible that these structures could be sitting there for millions of years and not have come crumbling down from gravity? Wouldn't these rocks have eventually broken down and become completely flat with the Earth's crust if millions of years of time were what had allowed them to be placed there? Let me tell you something. What placed these rock spires there, these hoodoos, was a globally cataclysmic event that happened in the recent past. Noah's flood is a fact of geology, and the reason that we know that is because of these things that we are now observing in science that you can test and verify to be true.
Hoodoos are temporary on a geologic timescale, and they do collapse just very slowly. This is just the same silly argument as the rock arches, just dressed up differently. Imagine thinking that a global flood just picked up all these rocks and gently placed them on other rocks. Amazing.
My sixth piece of evidence would be mountains themselves. Many mountain ranges are made of bent rock. Now, according to Darwinists, the plates are moving 1 to 2 inches per year, and it causes mountains to slowly get formed. But if that were true, how is it that you have mountains that are made up of bent rocks? You cannot bend hard rock. It will break. It will shatter. What it means is that these layers would have had to have all been pliable all at the same time and pushed up rapidly through plate tectonics, and that's how you have mountains that are still standing today and in those positions, because all of those layers were pliable during their formation. It's not that slow and gradual change in the Earth's crust caused mountains to be formed.
But rocks can bend if the conditions are right. It's really not hard to understand how this happens. Sedimentary layers, of course, are deposited horizontally over time. Tectonic plates often collide, especially at convergent boundaries, and that pressure compresses and folds the rock, sometimes on a massive scale. You have to remember, a lot of these are formed miles below the surface, where the rocks are hot and under immense pressure. And of course, all that time allows for slow deformation.
Number 7 would be sharks that are buried with dinosaurs in the center of the United States. How is it possible that a wave of water could hit the center of the United States to be able to bury hundreds of thousands of different animals with sea life, sharks, dinosaurs, and so on and so forth, all at dead center of the US? That means there would have been a globally catastrophic flood that would have been able to hit the center of the United States with waves from the oceanic coast.
During the late Cretaceous period, much of North America was underwater. It was covered by the Western Interior Seaway. This shallow, warm sea was home to a lot of marine life: sharks, mosasaurs, ammonites, and many more. Along its coastal margins, you'd find dinosaurs and rivers and forests, just like coastal zones today. So no real issue here then, Matt. You can see quite easily how this would have worked.
Number 8, we find whales in the desert. How did they get there? How do you get whale fossils that are preserved? Because remember, a fossil has to be rapidly buried by sediment in order to be preserved. How do you get it in the Sahara Desert? The answer is that a globally catastrophic flood called Noah's Flood actually happened and placed whales in the Sahara Desert that we're now finding later on as we do scientific research.
What? The Sahara Desert today was once underwater. Millions of years ago, it was covered by a shallow sea and coastal areas. The whales didn't end up in the desert by a flood. The desert ended up where the ocean used to be. Simple as that. A poor one, even by your standards, Matt.
Number 9, fossils. Think about it. Fossils require rapid burial in order to be preserved. So if you're finding things like fossilized ichthyosaurs giving birth, what that tells you is that it doesn't take 10,000 years to get a fossil, like Darwinists assume. It only takes a few moments in some cases. That would be an awfully long birth if it actually took that long for that fossil to form. You find fossilized schools of fish that are all together. We find fossilized fish eating other fish. Does it take 10,000 plus years to have a meal? These organisms were buried so quickly that they were buried in the act of whatever they were doing. You have a school of fish sticking together, and they didn't even have time to scatter because they were buried so quickly by the flood of Noah.
Fossils of frozen moments do require rapid burial, yes. No one is arguing that they don't, but this is common in localized events like underwater landslides, volcanic ash falls, or sudden sedimentation, not a global flood. It seems you don't really understand how fossilization works, Matt, and then you proceed to try and argue against it. Weird.
Number 10, we find cold rock that has been subducted into the hot molten mantle of the earth. And this, I would say, is probably the most powerful piece of evidence for Noah's flood. How is it that you have cold rock that's 10 miles thick that has been subducted into the molten mantle where you have hot rock all around it? How is that possible if slow and gradual change 1 to 2 inches per year is pulling that rock down into the mantle?
This one is a colossal mix of misunderstandings. First off, the mantle is solid rock, not liquid. It is hot and behaves plastically over long periods. A subducting slab of rock moves down slowly, but it retains some of its cooler temperature over long timescales. It's like pushing a cold spoon into warm soup. The spoon doesn't instantly heat up. And secondly, when we say cold, we mean colder than the surrounding rock. A subducting rock, for example, could be 800 degrees C, with the surrounding rock being 1300 degrees C. You've got this one all wrong. Either that or you're using it intentionally to deceive. The worst one by far. But let's hear his reasoning for it.
What it shows us is that in the recent past, the crust of the earth was broken up and pieces of rock were going under one another and literally causing mountains to form, as we covered earlier. But then we realized, since they're still cold, that this catastrophe must have happened in the recent past. So if you find cold rocks that are in the hot mantle of the earth, and they're from the crust of the earth, they had to have been rapidly subducted. And let me say this too. If something like that happened today, if you had a 10-mile thick piece of rock from the oceanic crust that was broken up and rapidly subducted, we would experience such a globally cataclysmic process here that we would have another global flood.
What are you blithering on about? If rapid subduction occurred today, it wouldn't cause a flood. It would cause huge amounts of volcanic activity and megaquakes. I've had enough of this nonsense from Matt today. Total hogwash. These are the worst reasons ever at explaining how Noah's flood was a fact. Try harder, Matt. Well, there we go, everyone. Another one all wrapped up. Let me know in the comments below what you thought of Matt's 10 reasons. As I say, we're all done and dusted for another one. Thanks so much for watching today. It is always appreciated. If you enjoyed it, please do consider subscribing to the channel, especially for more of the same. And this month, where I mentioned earlier, there's a video every single day. And if the feeling takes you, a big thumbs up would be helpful as well. Thank you. Just enough time from me again to say thank you to Ground News for sponsoring. Remember, go to ground.news/Simon, stay fully informed on breaking news. and compare media coverage, use the link in the description to get 40% off unlimited access if you support the mission and find it as useful as I do. I've been Simon Dan, have yourselves a great day, and I'll see you tomorrow where Level Earth Observer is going to look at the Katy Perry Blue Origin New Shepard flight, and I'm finally going to have my say on it. See you then.